TitleMatchNetwork.com.
How did you get into the wrestling business? Let's talk about your background.
It's pretty crazy. My husband, Steve McMichael, that was an all-pro defensive tackle. He retired, and during that period of time, I would always do stuff for Steve and get in his appearances and all that. So when he was going into retirement, I had a friend that knew the head guy at Turner Sports. I forgot his name at the time, that guy. And so he was like, put together a tape of Steve and his past and what he's done, and I did do that and added music, and we gave it to our friend, and they showed it to Eric Bischoff. And
right.
Eric was like, yep, I want to hire you, Steve.
Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
No.
Not at all?
No, it's funny because I left Alabama after college and became a flight attendant with American Airlines, and that's how I met Steve McMichael at the airport.
Wow.
So I never really, and we grew up sort of poor, so we didn't really, we just, my daddy worked at a foundry, my mother was a nurse, and we lived on 10 acres, and so I didn't really, wrestling was not, I had 3 brothers, but they were more into car racing.
Now, you were in beauty pageants growing up too, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of pageants, and that's probably why now, like, people all make fun of me because my posture is so...
Perfect.
And I can't change it. I've always, they think I'm sitting uncomfortable, but that's just what I train myself.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing. I'm trying to be taller, but I can't get there. I'm only 5'5".
Right. Have you ever dated any other athletes before Steve, or?
Steve 1 or Steve 2?
Steve 1. Oh, yeah, that's right.
See, I have to
History
say,
of Steve's.
Yeah, I have to go Steve 1 or Steve 2.
Right.
So,
Steve
1?
Yeah.
Actually, my boyfriend in college played football for the Crimson Tide for Bear Bryant back in the day. So I've always been attracted to big football player type guys.
Now you studied acting too, right?
Yes. I lived in New York for a couple of years and studied at Lee Strasberg. I'm a method actor. So I wanted to do soap operas, but I didn't know my life was going to be in the soap opera. Be careful what you wish for.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, so that's what I really... And if you think about wrestling, that's like a male soap opera.
Basically.
And you get to still perform and walk out on the stage and people yell your name and, it's like a theater.
What was it like to date an NFL player?
Ooh, that was different because growing up in the little town in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and being very simple, I was, when I left, I was probably early 20s, and that was more like I was 17 because I was very naive, and boom, I got hired, based out of Chicago, 3 months there. I met him, and then he wanted me to meet him at a ball game, and so I showed up at the ball game, and right when I walked in was when Walter Payton broke his record, this all-time rushing record, and I didn't understand what was going on. And then I asked him when I go, is Steve McMichael seeing any good? And they go, well, you would know. He gave you the tickets. And I was like, oh, that wasn't real slick.
All right.
So then I turned really red. I was embarrassed. And I remember I used Walter Payton's cell phone that day. I had to call. Back then we had beepers for work, and he beat me. And I just didn't realize how famous these people were back then. And I thought, oh, you just go to the Super Bowl every year. That's pretty cool.
Right.
But now I know better.
Do you have any good Walter Payton stories?
No, because pretty much like the defensive line hung together. So we were more with Dan Hampton and Richard Dent.
Mike Ditka, I think.
Yeah, Mike Ditka was always around us. I mean, I have wonderful stories, as in one time we were all in Berlin for a preseason game, and the whole defensive line was there, and you can imagine, they were the best defensive line ever.
Yeah.
These huge guys, and we drank. And then we had the kicker with us who was trying to hang with the big guys.
Right.
And so they were all drinking all the liquor out of the cabinets in the whole bar. There was no liquor left in the bar. And all of a sudden, Kevin Butler, the kicker, is just sitting there, and all of a sudden he just gets sick, like all over himself, on Mike Ditka, and then we had to all carry him up there. Well, I didn't. The defensive players had to carry him up to his room because he couldn't hang with the big guys.
How crazy was Mongo back then on the road?
You know what? He was he is so crazy, but he's quite the gentleman. I know that sounds crazy to where we could be on a rental car bus, and if a guy wouldn't get up for a woman, he'd make the guy get up.
Right.
He was that way. He was definitely old school. But he was really fun, and I think I learned a lot from him on how to entertain and how to be quick-witted, and he's so smart. He could tell you dates of history, anything about math, trig, whatever, and you would not know that about Steve McMichael. Very, very intelligent, but quick-witted, and he was always really good to take me into the business with him, like for his sports shows.
Right.
He would always have me there with him and add me into the show because he just knew I like to show dog.
Were you ever worried about him being on the road by himself as far as like cheating and all that stuff, or was it something that you guys...
It was weird with the NFL. We really were never apart. I always went to training camp with Steve.
Right.
as the refrigerator Perry's wife would too. We were the only two wives, and our husbands wanted us to go.
Wow.
So I was really never not with him. I would take him to the airport when he would travel. He would come back on the charter plane the next night, and I'd pick him up at 3 or 4 in the morning because I knew he's hurting.
Right.
And he's sore, and he's been drinking, and so we were never. It was really a calm life.
How about William Perry? What was he like outside?
He was fun. Actually, his wife, she was visiting me in Alabama for 3 days. But really fun. That man could drink some beer, like a case,
right,
after the game. And he was really fun. I remember one of my memories, we used to be really good friends with Jim Belushi, the actor.
Right.
Huge Bear fan. So he would, it was really close to Steve McMichael. And one time after a game, we were at this blues bar, and I wished we had this on tape because William's drunk, singing the blues. Steve's up there singing with
Belushi.
With Belushi, and it was just
wow.
And I'm thinking, man, if someone could just see this.
That's money.
That's money. Yeah, it was funny. William had that big space in between his teeth.
Right.
That was back in the day when the Bears were just red hot.
What other famous actors did you get to at least meet with?
I met so many famous people. I mean, it's amazing how many people I've met, especially, through the NFL and then wrestling. But the NFL, I remember one story. One time, Jimmy was working with the White Horse production, and they had a huge show out in Vegas for all their actors and all their movies that year.
Right.
So he had Steve and I. Steve had knee surgery, so they had Steve and I go on the charter plane with them. It was like 4 727s. They had chartered for all the movie stars. And we were sitting on there, and I was going, oh my gosh, there's so-and-so, there's so-and-so.
Huh.
And I'm thinking, everyone's going to think I'm a movie star too. I was like in my 20s, and I was like, oh yeah. So then I remember we got off, they had limos, and we went there. It was like doing a big theater convention.
Wow.
And then we were all there, sitting right there with all it was so many. I forgot what year it was, but it was every star that worked for White Horse Production.
Wow.
Mega stars.
What was it like going to the Super Bowl? What was that like?
Oh man, I wish I could just go back and redo that again. I would have definitely done it differently. I remember we were there, and the night before the Super Bowl, I was out on Bourbon Street with my cousin, and then I got up that morning. I remember Star Magazine. Remember they would do a thing what the stars are wearing, and they had my picture for what I was wearing to the Super Bowl, my purple leather, North Beach leather outfit back in the day. And I remember that morning, all the wives we were taking showers, and the whole hotel ran out of hot water. Had to take a cold shower. I was like, But then we got to the game. Of course, our tickets are right there, 50-yard line, and it was a blowout. It was a great game. And then we got back. Actually, I walked to the stadium and walked back to the hotel, and then we had this gigantic party. With just movie stars everywhere there, and we were there, and Mike Ditka was so drunk and just laughing, and I still have pictures of him with a big cigar hanging out of his mouth, and just everyone just hooping and screaming. And then the next day we got on a charter 747, and then this was unbelievable. They shut down the whole expressway.
Wow.
from the airport to downtown Chicago, and then people were hanging over the road.
This is for the parade then, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, and then to go downtown, it was like something out of a movie scene. The fans were crazy. The fans had confetti coming out of the high-rise buildings.
That's cool.
It was just like a dream, and we had 3 buses, and the fans were just packed on us. Like, I thought someone was going to get killed. This one lady, I can still see her. She jumped up on the bus, and she was like, her hands was like that.
Right.
And her purse was dangling on the wiper blades. And then finally, it was just, I can't believe, the buses finally had to stop. Then the players got out at the top. Through the window,
right.
that thing at the top, so they could wave to all the fans, and it was just like a movie set.
Sounds pretty cool.
It was, and I was so young back then, I didn't appreciate it like I would now.
Right. Did any of the other players ever hit on you?
No.
Everybody's respectful and all?
Oh, very respectful, yeah, because I don't think you'd want to piss off another NFL player.
Right.
Yeah, I think that'd be, especially Steve McMichael, that could bench press like 540 pounds.
Right.